Hello, it looks like we are live. So, hello and welcome to Cook the Books Live. This is my new series where I get the chance to sit down and have a conversation with the authors of the books that I'm cooking from. With me today, we have the phenomenally inspirational Felicity Spector. Felicity, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You always seem so busy, so you never stop.
So it's partly my fault. I'm sure I could get all the stuff done in half the time.
So super grateful that we've been able to steal you for half an hour. I am going to fluff you up a little bit just before we dig into the book. So we are today talking about your book, Bread and War. It is, there we go, the new paperback copy. Also on audio as well. I have been listening whilst I've been baking as well as reading, which has been fantastic. But Felicity, you are a London-based journalist and food writer and the author of this wonderful book. You spent over 3 decades in international news and national news. And alongside your reporting, you've become a bit of a foodie, what is the word they use now? Influencer. And all those bakeries that you pass.
Frying good to go bags, so I am probably not down the TikTok generation anymore.
All those bakeries that you pass on the way to and from work, it just is so tempting. I don't know how you do it. But you've also served as well, or are you a serving member of the Great Test Awards, judge?
I've been doing that for a while. I now can only manage to do 1 or 2 days, but I've been doing it for about 12 years.
Wow, okay.
Such a nice organisation, and they really do so much to help small businesses and food retailers, and like really give them a platform. And they do a lot as well as the awards. The Guild of Fine Food does loads of mentoring and offers sort of support. They really have a lot of time for them.
Good. Right. So since, gosh, has it been 4 years now since the first Russian invasion? Is that correct me if I'm wrong?
Well, the full-scale Russian invasion. Obviously, they invaded Ukraine in 2014 the first time, and took over Crimea, annexed that,
Yes.
moved into the Donetsk region. But the war that everybody knows about, when Ukraine became, sadly on the headlines of our program, which is never really where you want your country to be. But yeah, that was February 2022. Yeah, it's been a long time.
It feels like we'll come back to all the great stuff that I associate with this book. Reading it, I feel like I've never felt more naive about a particular topic, because you feel like you're taking in as much information as you can, but you just don't. You're skimming the surface, aren't you, when you're sort of taking it on in the daily news or the things you see on social media. It really runs much deeper than you can really imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm immersed in it. I mean, obviously, I write about all sorts of topics. So at the moment, we're writing constantly about the Iran war and what's going on in the Middle East, Gaza, Israel, all those sort of other terrible conflicts that are happening. And I know I'm still obviously reading all the Ukrainian papers every day, and I keep up with friends who are there, and I visit Ukraine a lot as well. So obviously, I'm very immersed in it, and I sort of forget that other people don't. Maybe they don't know anything about what they think the war is over or something, or they don't know where specific cities are, or what's happening on the battlefield. They think that's the whole country, that everywhere has sort of street to street fighting. So I have to then remind myself to explain things in a very easy and engaging way. And I think food is a really good way of doing that, because so much of culture, business, charity, just day-to-day life, all of it involves some kind of relationship with food. So I thought this was a really good way to kind of talk about what was happening in a way that hopefully people can relate to.
Oh, 100%. It definitely, more than ever, especially when you're reading it in this book, it feels like food really is the nexus of everything, really. It brings communities together, it nourishes people, it's a lifeline, and it is exactly as you write about it, it's hope, and for a lot of people.
Yes, exactly. But I wanted to show that it's it is a very important thing in people's lives, especially in terms of culture and heritage. There are some really important recipes and foods in Ukraine because it's such a fertile country. So a lot of it is farmland and it grows really amazing quality wheat. Everybody knows about that. The sunflower, a lot of sunflower oil comes from Ukraine. Um, Other grains like buckwheat and rye in the north,
Yeah.
and then the vegetables and fruit, because of the, it has hugely different climates. It's a massive country, so what you can grow in the south around the Black Sea is very different from and what you can grow up in the east, and both of those have this very, very fertile soil. And so when you go to the food markets, where small farmers and local sellers come, the quality of it is amazing. It's just
Yeah.
delicious, properly tasting vegetables like you wouldn't get here. And even in the supermarkets there, they have some really good quality supermarkets. You'd be astonished how well stocked they are, even in a Kherson, which is bombarded day in, day out. Somehow the supermarket still has absolutely everything you could
Still
possibly want.
full.
Expensive, not everyone can afford it. But if you're lucky enough to be able to, if you've still got your job and you have a reasonable expectation of continuing, you can still afford to buy really, really nice fruit and vegetables. And a lot of other people have relations, their mums and dads or grandparents who have these small holdings. I don't even know what to call them. Like they live in a village or in a small town, they'll have like a long, thin garden behind the house, and they try
Yeah.
and grow there. So when people's parents come to visit them in the city, even if they, they might have like perfectly capable of buying their own food, but the parents like, oh, don't be ridiculous, it's not our food. Bring like a case full of pickles and fresh tomatoes or something. It's quite, my friends who I sometimes stay with, like when their parents are in town, they'll just literally fill the kitchen with boxes of fruit and vegetables. It's just, can't go and get them in Kiev.
I
But
grew a little larder.
my friends are like always happy to have them because they make these beautiful jams and pickled and fermented. Really, lacto fermentation is what they use, which sounds posh, but I think it just means in salt water.
Yeah.
And they will make everything into pickles because obviously in the old days during the winter you couldn't get anything fresh, so people took what they could during the fertile times and then bottled them. And plums, apples, all sorts of vegetables, everything was in these jars, and they're sort of underneath sofas. They'd be like, you lift up the blanket and then there's a like, oh, because you've got to keep
Jar of pickles.
yeah, it'd be like a whole sort of library of amazing fruit and vegetables. It's quite amazing. Or in the cellar. So that is also what kept people going at the beginning of the full-scale war, when even everywhere in Ukraine, pretty much everything closed.
Yeah.
Weeks, because nobody knew what was happening. Lots of people were sort of trying to escape to a safer place. There was a huge curfew. There was a lot of air attacks from Russian warplanes and so on. So everything closed. And one of the chefs I spoke to in the book, he said, imagine if that happened in England, if like every single shop just closed, nothing is open for weeks. People would go absolutely mental. They'd be like people besieging, trying to loot places. I mean, it would be impossible. Nobody has, apart from a few weirdos who've got a loft full of supplies, for the impending end of the world or something. But no normal people have got like stocks of useful stuff that would last them for sort of 3 or 4 weeks. But Ukrainians, because they grew up under communism when you couldn't rely on there being anything in the shops, they have this mentality that like you've got to be prepared. And they also they have a lot of they're very practical skills. A lot of people know how to make a candle out of a potato, piece of wood, and some cooking oil. Yeah. The guys I spoke to in Izium, they had to basically live in a basement for about 3 months with loads of the people, and it was absolutely shocking. Terrible fighting going on. Half the city is destroyed, and they kept safe by staying underground, but you couldn't really go out to even get anything because there was sometimes a complete curfew, like 24-hour curfew, and also it was really dangerous. So luckily they had a load of jars of whatever, pickles and fermented foods and some packets of stuff, and they just about managed to sort of, when they could get out, find some food and water and bring it back, and the rest of the time manage with what they had. And he told me they used to make these, they'd stick a piece of, hollow out a bit in the top of the potato, put some cooking oil in it, stick a piece of wood in there, and then that would keep burning.
Wow.
So,
really resourceful then.
Yeah. They had about 60 people down there, children, everything in this basement. So you can't just, huddle in the dark for
Yeah.
weeks on end. It's kind of, you've got to work out a way of making it a bit more livable.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Mm.
So your approach to this book, did you go into it knowing it was going to be centered around food, or you
Yeah,
did? Yeah.
yeah, because that's where my contacts were, and also it's just the thing that inspired me. And I thought that other people, it was a bit niche, food and war. But actually, I thought it was quite an interesting way into it, and because I'd met lots of these volunteers and small businesses and big businesses actually, and I was really impressed by how they were sort of pivoting all the time and
Mm,
keep going. And we saw a little bit of it, and in a different way during the pandemic. How the food businesses, and small restaurants and things just sort of rallied round and started
yeah.
doing deals for doctors and sort of elderly people and so on. And that sort of impulse, you know, like all the restaurants in Ukraine, they had to close at the beginning of the war. No one was open. Everyone sort of hunkered down for a few days, and then they were like, "Well, we've got all this food. What are we going to do with it? Let's cook it for the soldiers who are defending the city." So
Yeah.
local places, kind of, if they had somewhere secure where they could cook, sort of in a basement or in a dark kitchen somewhere that wasn't sort of in the line of fire, then that's what they all did, and they
Yeah.
were feeding these, volunteer soldiers who sort of joined up at the beginning to defend the city when it wasn't clear whether the Russians were going to breach the defences. I mean, they did get very close to Kiev, and
Yeah.
we know what happened to these awful massacres that happened in places like Bucha, which is a satellite town just outside on the outskirts of Kiev, and Irpin, where they blew up a bridge and sort of shot at people as they tried to leave. It was absolutely appalling. So fortunately, these defenders managed to keep the Russians from entering Kiev. And of course,
Yeah.
they had that great long column of tanks that was then bombed
Yes.
from the air while they sat there, in a rather stupid strategy. But, those soldiers, they needed feeding, and the restaurants
Mm,
were really instrumental in that. And then afterwards, some of them kept up a relationship with the brigades who they'd helped in those early days of the war, and worked out ways of sort of continuing to send them some sort of food, whether it was dried food or whether it was extra supplies. I mean, they do get
mm.
supplied with food centrally, but in a lot of cases, it's maybe not not what they might wish
Not the
for.
greatest.
Well, it's difficult. I think you have someone who knows what they're doing, and I mean, I went to see them, this Marine Brigade, and I think they sort of suggested them because they had a very good reputation, and the guy who was in charge of the cooking hadn't been a chef before, but he was really into it, and like was very, very keen to do a good job, and
Yeah.
so he devised good menus, and he had very good working practices, kept everything clean, tidied away, nothing was left outside when it shouldn't have been, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I know from other people that they were like, "Oh my god, they put the chicken on the floor or something." You know what I mean? Like, because they
Oh no.
in charge who doesn't want to do it, and they feel, "Oh, why am I doing this? I have better things to do." Then
Yeah.
haven't got necessarily culinary training. Then it's not going to be as professional. But I mean, I know that everybody puts the best effort they can into these things. So you
Yeah.
know, I'm
And
sure.
that's one of the things, isn't it? Especially, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll keep coming back to community. Um, and it feels like you don't shy away, not that you ever would do, about the hard stuff, writing about the hard stuff throughout the book. But it almost seems to me is is that we're presented with, like, as I said in a video this morning, the worst of humanity. You then get the flip immediately of the best of humanity, and it's this awful thing happened, but and then it's what how people rallied and came together, and there's no question whatsoever of people weren't going to muck in and do what they needed to do. They just and still are just
yeah.
getting on with it.
I mean, it is really difficult. If you imagine how hard it is to organise one event. If you
Yeah,
organise a bake sale to raise money for something, it's like really tiring. You have to badger people, and imagine trying to do that constantly for 4 years while
yeah,
also living through a war and having your own problems to deal with.
yeah,
So of course, people are getting tired, but the people I know who are still, we have volunteers who are still helping us at Bake for Ukraine in Odessa and Mykolaiv, and part of it is that it gives them something. They don't feel as powerless and as helpless because they're
yeah,
doing something positive when in a situation where a lot of your power is taken away from you because of circumstances. and a lot of the time it is really difficult. Like they get woken up a lot in the night by attacks, especially in Odessa. Often there's no electric. Like just 2 days ago there was a big attack in Odessa.
Yeah.
It was very noisy for most of the night. A lot of it was quite near where my friends live. Then they woke up in the morning after a few hours sleep and there's no electricity again, and who knows how long it'll take to repair. So all of those, and that's difficult. You can't even have a shower. You can't,
Yeah.
make a tea. Have the light on in the evening, watch TV. It sounds trivial, but weeks and months and years of that is really exhausting in itself. And also everyone's income has suffered. I was with a Ukrainian friend the other day, and she said the exchange rate of the hryvnia, which is the Ukrainian currency, to the dollar, which is now about, I think, well, to the pound, it's about 50. And it was about 5, she said it like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, oh my goodness. Imagine if your currency devalued by that much. And, so,
They're attacked on all sides then,
yeah.
really.
There are a lot of people who have businesses. Like I've got a friend who he used to have 3 cafes, and then they opened a fourth at the beginning of just after the beginning of the full scale war, because it was in train anyway, and now he's gone down to 2 because he just couldn't make it pay. He said he was really tried because he wanted to keep people in work, but it just, he said the exchange rate was one thing that really hit them.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that one of the cafes, it was in this lovely residential sort of, they have quite a few of them. It's almost like a big, huge gated community. So you need a kind of QR code or something, or a thing on your car to get in. And then there's loads of blocks of flats, and there's everything you need in there. I think they even have schools, but they have like leisure facilities. There's a few small shops, cafes.
Okay.
So people can sort of live within this place. And they're on the outskirts, so it's like a little commuter town. And he'd opened a cafe there, and before the war there was tons of young people. Everyone bought a coffee on the way to work, or they were at home with kids and came out at lunchtime and so on. It was pretty busy. And then of course, as soon as the full-scale invasion, like loads of people left, and then the rest who stayed didn't have any money. And after a while he was like, there was just not enough people coming in at all, and his income had suffered because of the exchange rate situation. So all of those issues have meant that how a struggle for food businesses to keep going anyway. And that's without worrying about all these other issues, like what if there's a blackout, and you have to pay for a generator, which is really expensive, and then pay for the generator fuel, which is really expensive, and still pay your electricity bill for when the lights are on, so you don't get let off altogether from that. And business rates, or whatever they equivalent, they don't have a zero. There's no, the government isn't saying, oh well, we're not expecting you to pay until
we'll help you out this way.
And so it's it's already a struggle because prices are going up. There's a huge labour shortage. A lot of men are in the army, a lot of women left, so the population shrank by maybe 8 million, I think. I mean, some of those will be children, but still it's a huge amount of those people will have been working, young working age people, the sort of people who would be, waiting staff or work in the kitchens or whatever, do coffee. So everything is just a struggle, but people don't want to sit at home and be miserable. So they are still opening new places and trying to keep things going. I mean, I did notice actually, and somebody else has pointed this out, that the blackouts over this last winter were particularly bad, like days and days with nothing, no electricity in a lot of cities. And there have been quite a few businesses which just couldn't, they had to close because they couldn't afford to stay open during that period, and now they probably won't reopen.
No. I guess you can't even plan weeks ahead, can you? Because it's just what's going to happen day by day.
Yeah, and you don't know, maybe there'll be a huge rocket attack and then nobody wants to come out, or you have to close while that's happening, and the transport's, screwed up, and all sorts of things which you can't, or you might get your windows broken, something might land nearby. Who knows?
Shatters.
Yeah. And you can't just claim on the insurance, you know what I mean? You've got to work it out how to, if your windows are all broken. Usually people have some kind of, sometimes their friends will set up if they're a popular place, they'll say, oh, our favourite cafe windows got broken, here's a Monobank, which is the Ukrainian sort of online bank, has a very clever system for organising collections, and it's called the cookie jar. And then they just put up a link,
Nice.
and then you just fill the cookie jar, and you can donate
Yeah.
with a click on your phone, and then it tops up until it gets to its total. So that's what
That's
people
good.
set up, and it's very easy for someone to donate. So there's a very big now donating culture, but it's getting really hard because a lot of people don't have any money to spare, even if they want to.
Yeah, and I guess that's why, you know, the call for help still continues outside of the country as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what we decided with Bake for Ukraine, because people are tired, and obviously everyone's struggling, and it's apart from some rich kind of, I don't know who's doing well, crypto people, whatever they
Oh
are.
God, yeah.
Someone's doing well. Lawyers, they always do all right. But most people are kind of like, oh God, I can't afford to go out for dinner for the next month.
Yeah.
But it's just another level there. I mean, €1 will pay for a lot more there, for somebody. So with Bake for Ukraine, we're always trying to find new avenues of raising money.
Yeah.
Because the girls who started the charity at the time when the full-scale invasion started, they were in Berlin, so that's where they set up the original sort of entity. And we have a very nice group of guys at this fundraising platform called WeAid, and they do all the kind of the financial side. So they handle all the financial reports, all the transparency, the due diligence, and all that kind of thing, because they are a platform that sort of helps smaller charities which can't afford to have. I mean, we have, luckily, one of our people she worked in finance for a company that supplied plates and cooking equipment and stuff
Okay. Yeah.
to restaurants in Ukraine. So she's good with spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But this WeAid group is a registered charity, and so they will do all of that. And so if we get a grant from sort of an outside body that needs to go and have all that paperwork done, then it's slow, but they
They'll do it.
they take a very tiny amount for their trouble, but we're very grateful to them.
I think a big part of it as well is, like for us, for instance, we hadn't connected before 2 months ago. The good power of Substack, and it
Yeah.
was the lovely Mark Diacono had just restacked one of your posts. I think even, well, not even, it's small in its own way, but it can be so grand in others that it just helps people rally again. Like it's, I wouldn't have picked up your book necessarily until later on down the line, unless I hadn't have read your post and then inquired for some reviews from people, and everyone's like, "You've got to get it. It's a fantastic book."
Nice.
It's not a typical cookbook. It's it's what would you call it? Not a memoir. What would you call it? It's
No, it's kind of a narrative food writing.
Yeah.
Or even, I mean, that's why it's a bit difficult to categorize. I've seen it in all sorts of weird sections, like travel. The worst bookshop with history, and I'm like, well, it's definitely not Russian history.
No.
Russia is history. But yeah, but no, I moved it. But yes, it was an odd. I mean, I just wanted to write it, and thankful to Duckworth for saying, "Oh, go on then," because and I think it was really helpful having the Substack, because although I've been a journalist for 37 years, I write every day, I don't write for myself. So I write for somebody else, read out on the TV, and I don't have bylines for people to sort of know me or know my work. So, and it's a very different thing as well, writing for television, because you can quickly write something right next, and then you write, and they're very short paragraphs because you're just introducing another story or writing something brief, news in brief. So suddenly sitting down to do a whole book and trying to make it something which wasn't just a series of articles, maybe it is, but trying to make it into something coherent. So I organised it by section so that it would be, it would tell different stories, but in a kind of hopefully coherent way. So you've got bakers, and then you've got the army, and then you've got sort of businesses, and then chefs. So
it's almost reading it. It's almost like you really are taking us on a journey around all these places, and it doesn't feel like they're like hard stops. It's like we're on to the next place, and you almost imagine yourself inside the mobile bakery, and you're going to the next place, and you're learning about these stories and the people and the communities that you're coming across. I love that. It was just, as a visual person, it was just great to follow that journey.
I mean, most of the time I travel by train. It's a very big country, and
Mm.
the first time I went, well, not the very first time, but the first time I went since the full-scale invasion, we drove from London with a convoy of trucks with equipment for a bakery, which their warehouse had been bombed, and I was very grateful to all the people who offered professional baking equipment and stuff. And then we found a really nice group of guys called the Ukraine Sunflower Aid, and
Okay.
they're based somewhere up in, I don't know, Berkshire or somewhere, and they organised the vans, and then we all took. I mean, I was a passenger because I can't drive, but they drove very kindly all the way with everything, and had some help with the customs and all of that. And we realised then it was a 4-day trip. You think you've arrived, you think across the Polish border, and you think, oh, but then it's like 2 days from there to Kiev. Poland is huge, and then you've got to get across Ukraine,
Yeah.
and the distances, but these night trains. So now it's becoming a lot more complicated because the Russians sadly have started attacking trains, even moving.
Oh no.
So I suddenly, over I think the last 3 or 4 weeks, the Ukrainian Railways has got a new protocol. So if there's a drone approaching a train, they have to stop the train and get everybody off, because if it hits the train, it would cause a big fire immediately and be quite difficult to evacuate people.
Yeah.
So they have to stop it. Everyone gets off, has to stand in the woods near the train tracks, and then clamber
Really
back up.
safe.
It's very disruptive, but better, obviously, safer than hoping that you can just drive through it. So
Mm.
that's made a lot of train journeys a lot disrupted, and some stations aren't working now, so you have to get a bus from some of the way. So I'm just luckily I've got a long trip coming up, and so I don't have to, if I have to change plans at the last minute, it's not the end of the world. I've been asked to speak at a university. I'm meeting another baker who's coming from France with his own bread truck, and he
Oh,
goes to see
great.
cities. So been trying to meet him for a while. So he's also going to come and visit our mobile bakery, I think, in May. But I hopefully meet him first down in Zaporizhia,
Yeah.
in the south, and then go east to Kharkiv. I've got some good friends there, and there's a chef who's in the book who's now been mobilised into the army. But while that was happening, he opened this incredible. Well, his friends had to take over from him because obviously he was busy training for his new role. But he had started this incredible cafe, which he wanted to. He's been talking about it for years, but rotisserie chicken from the chickens from the farms nearby, everything handmade. It's based in the central food market, so everything is locally produced. He
Yeah.
picks vegetables. They make their own mayonnaise. They make these beautiful flatbreads. They've got like this 3-day process for cooking the chicken. So they brine it, they air dry it, they cook it over fire. It's just an incredible place. So they had lots of help from architects who designed it for free, and then all the proceeds go to this amazing charity, which I've also written about in the book, called Volonterska, and they help small farms in villages around Izium, which is east of Kharkiv, so towards Donetsk region, and it was occupied at the beginning of the full-scale war. It was very badly damaged, and a lot of these villages were heavily mined, and a lot of the farms were destroyed. I went to a village called Kamyanka, which there's barely a house still standing, but people are trying to move back and trying to rebuild, and the demining groups obviously first have cleared some of the fields, and this charity helps in a really practical way. They buy seeds, they send them because people can't afford anything. They've lost everything. They help rebuild greenhouses. They get rakes. They get spades. They organise transport for the vegetables to come to Kharkiv. They have a small shop where they will sell them. They also sell them to cafes, and then the farmers get to keep all the proceeds. So it's a really good example of how people organise effective help. So they don't sit around waiting for the UN to do something. It's still here next Christmas. I mean, I'm sure
Do it ourselves.
they don't have that level of sort of immediate responsiveness, and also knowing exactly how to help regular people who can't sit around filling in grant application forms till the cows come home. They just need somebody to buy them a greenhouse and a rake. Then they get on with it themselves. So that's that's the kind of group which I really wanted to find out more about and to tell people about, because I think it's really helpful to know that, people can help themselves in a very immediate and help, sort of beneficial way without having to have huge amounts of resources, but you do need somebody to give you that initial leg up.
A
And then
little bit of help.
nobody wants to be a charity case, live off, handouts and things. People just want their, dignity back.
Yeah, of course. Take us back. So for people that don't know or haven't read the book yet, the mobile bakery and the friends that you made on there, tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'll be going to see them when I get to Odessa. So they Bake for Ukraine, which it sounds like a grand organisation. It's actually sort of 4 girls and our friend Sasha, who also was mobilised into the army. Basically, they all have kept this group going. God knows how. They're very driven and amazing people. And they're based in Odessa. Maria is in Berlin a lot of the time, but she's also comes and goes from Odessa, and they're fiercely loyal to the city. It's their whole life. But they immediately wanted to do something to help people who were worse off. There were at the beginning of the war, a lot of displaced people came to Odessa from the occupied territories, like Kherson and the parts of Mykolaiv that were really being bombarded. So it was a slightly safer place at that point, and they didn't have any resources. No, God knows, they just took a bag with them when they left. So at that time, the emphasis was on providing immediate food aid to those people. And so the mobile bakery, when we first bought it, I managed to do some fundraising here, and it was about $15,000 that we raised, or $17,000. And Maria had found this vehicle that was in good working condition, not far from Odessa. She'd been looking and looking and looking because she knew that they existed somewhere. Loads of them were donated to Ukraine in the early 2000s. Originally, they're 60 years old. Swiss Army had 1 per battalion, because obviously the Swiss Army doesn't have any actual wars, does it? They're always new, but they could make croissants for each battalion, and they phased them out eventually. And then these, they're old, but they're still running. So a lot of them were decommissioned, and some of them somehow were donated to Ukraine. And then they're very self-contained, so they're very useful in a. I mean, they were army vehicles, but they're very useful in a unstable situation where there's maybe no water supply, no mains power. So they have a wood-fired oven. You can run them off gas. They have a generator that will run the mixer. You can fit a small tank of water in there and fill it up when you can get water with a filter. So you just need some vehicle to pull it. It's not a lorry or anything. It's like the back end trailer, but it's got 3 big deck ovens that will bake a couple of hundred loaves of bread easily. And we now make them in tins. We used to make the free-form loaves, but we put them in tins now because they're just easier to fit in the oven than to get in and out. And we've had some amazing support from international bakers. So an amazing guy called Alex, he has a bakery in East London called Today Bread. So I encourage anyone in Walthamstow to go and support them. Alex Bettler, who is originally Swiss, he's been out 5 times to Ukraine, and he's going to meet up with us in May. And he's trained people. So we have 2 girls who do most of the baking in Mykolaiv, and he helped train them to develop the recipes to, if they have any troubleshooting, they can contact him. I mean, they don't speak any of the same languages, but he also helped out in, before the Mykolaiv, we moved them there. He came to Odessa, he's been phenomenal. And then there's another guy called Willem he's a military chaplain, or he works with military chaplains. He's not himself in the army. He's from the Netherlands, but he's a very religious guy. He's also a baker, and he came out and developed some recipes and he's very efficient. He's about efficiency. So he was like, you could be doing this in a more efficient way. So he can change some of the working practices.
They're useful.
Yeah, thank you to him. And he came up with a couple of cake recipes, which they've also been making for some of the children in these villages as well, because people really enjoy something like that. So we're currently doing a kind of honey cake. I've actually tried it. I had a very
good.
we're not sure between these 5 recipes. Could you try the 5 cakes? I was like, oh, well, someone has to. We had to.
I'll endure it.
Yeah, it's been an amazing, and the girls in Mykolaiv who do the baking, incredible women, and they take part in the deliveries. And a lot of these villages are very, difficult to get to. So they take bread, they make the sourdough. We try to make a whole wheat one and one with rye because it's very nutritious. And a lot of the elderly people, they find it easier, to keep. It lasts for a long time. But everyone wants the white bread, so we have to do a bit of both. Yeah, and it's all sourdough, so it's good quality, and we use local wheat. So it's a good chain of also supporting the local economy in that respect as well.
Good, yeah. We've got a comment come in, so I will use this time just to remind people, if you do have a comment or a question that you'd like to pop in the chat, please do so. This one's from Robert, and it says, "Hi Felicity, love your book, have messaged you as such."
Excellent, thank you. It's really hard. Like, I've never written a book before, so it's always like you just hope that other people will get it. And I just wanted to do justice to the stories, really, because you feel it's quite a privilege to have those people trust you. I mean, like all the people I travelled with, there was a group, Boud de Druja, they're called, a small team of guys who have a catering business in Kiev, and they cook for soldiers. And I just found them on Instagram towards the beginning of the war. I don't know how I came across them. And I thought they just had honest faces. I don't know. They just seemed like a solid bunch of guys. And so I started following them. And then I said, "Oh, can I come and visit you in Kiev?" And they have a business on the left bank. So Kiev is divided by the river Dnipro. The left bank, more sort of working class, I suppose. There's a few factories and enterprises there. And the right bank is where the government headquarters are, universities, and the kind of fancier districts. But they're in the left bank, right at the end of one of the metro lines. So I went to visit them, and they'd set up this whole separate sort of entity for the army food that they were doing in the sort of outbuilding, and they were freeze drying or dehydrating rather a load of vegetables, and so they could make these sort of sealed packets, which if guys are in the positions and well, I guess in the frontline positions, they're not going to have very much scope for cooking. Whereas if they're in the rear, like they'll be living in sort of houses and that no one else is living in, so they'll have a kitchen, or somebody will have a kitchen, the cooks, and then they'll be able to distribute food. They don't gather guys together, obviously, because that would be stupid. So they'll take a fan with thermos flasks and things like that, and guys can come and collect it and then go back to wherever they're staying. But in the positions, there's you can't take much with you, and you don't have any, so you can't really do much except heat up water. So these dehydrated meals are very popular.
They work really well.
Yeah, and then one of the other things that this group does is that they actually travel to visit the units who they support, and they military hospitals or hospitals where soldiers were being treated in the east, and they've done a lot to really boost morale by taking a restaurant there for the day. And it's trivial, we're just going to make burgers, but actually it really brought a smile to people's faces, and especially when that you're in hospital and the food is kind of obviously not ideal, what it's like. And they had a good relationship with this lady who was a nurse, and she'd moved several times because she was from Bakhmut, which was destroyed, and then it's now occupied, and then she moved to Chasiv Yar, which was destroyed, and then she moved to Druzhkivka, which is now destroyed, and now she's in a different city in Kharkiv region, working as a hospital there. But you just think of the trauma that someone like that must have gone through, losing their home repeatedly.
Not just once, twice, 3, over and over again.
Thinking of what they could do to make other people's lives better. And I mean, obviously,
comes full circle to the community again.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say that everybody is an angel, and obviously there's systemic problems, and you might sort of sit there saying, well, why don't they give better food to the hospitals in the first place? But that's how it is. Can't necessarily change the big things, the structural problems, but you can go around the edge to improve everyday life for people in whatever way you can.
Whatever you can do as an individual, it means a great deal, doesn't it? It's A few more comments for you. Robert again has said, amazing bravery of all the bakers. Lisa has said, I am really moved by your work, Felicity. Thank you for all that you do. And Elizabeth has a question. How are the Ukrainian people keeping up their will and spirit? It's so inspirational.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. And I've read quite a few, and I know from friends that, they're starting to say, please don't call us resilient. Like we're not special. We don't have some special superpower that means that we don't get exhausted and pissed off and we just want our normal lives back. We every day to worry about will we wake up tomorrow. So I think a lot of people sort of like, don't put it on us, and then you can say, oh, but the Ukrainian people are so resilient, and then we don't need to worry about them. Yeah, it is really difficult to keep your spirits up, and it depends what kind of. So for some people, volunteering or doing something like to help others gives them some positive thing, as I said, that they can feel they've achieved, and it's within they've got something in their control, because a lot of are outside your control. And family is quite important there, very important. Like, a lot of people really are close to their families, and that really I've noticed this a lot, that people will be their parents, they look after them, they want to make sure that, like, I've got friends at the moment, they brought their parents to live with them, and they're making sure that they don't get forgotten, and the parents are trying to do the same back the other way. Oh, but we can we can cook for you and fill the house with food, and they're just like, oh my god, we're going to be.
Tradition still lives on, doesn't it? In the midst of all this, people are still baking Pascha, and it's food.
I mean, the sort of holidays, I think. So a lot of people during the winter was really hard. It was really, really hard. It was freezing cold. There was no heating for a lot of people. It was dark. There was a lot of attacks. The attacks have got more frequent, more intense. There's been daytime attacks, which is rare. All of that is very demoralizing. But everyone was saying, oh God, we're just waiting for spring. When spring comes, everything will be better. It's not a lot better in terms of attacks, but it's not dark and it's less cold. So I suppose at least you don't have that. So things always
little
look
by little
grim when it's sunshine and you can go outside. And I think things like the holidays, and still saying, no, we're going to have Easter. Screw you, Russia. We're having our Easter. We're going to do all the, and they have a lot of, and Passover for the Jewish community and so on. My friend went to a Seder in Kharkiv. It's been really loud, a lot of attacks in Kharkiv, like ridiculous amount of drones and missiles, everything. And everyone was exhausted, and she went to the synagogue, and they had their big tables set up with all the food, and they had the service, the Haggadah, which has been translated into Ukrainian a couple of years ago for the first time. So the full service was in Ukrainian, and they had everything.
Amazing.
Yeah, and she said it was so nice. She said everyone was just so friendly and welcoming, and really was happy to. She's not Jewish, but that doesn't matter. Come join us. We're so happy to have you. And she said she felt so much better. And I'm sure that Easter services for the Christian community, the Orthodox Christians, where they have this next week, it's Easter for them, and they have this thing where they bring baskets to the church to be blessed, and they'll have Pascha and the beautiful pisanki eggs, which are decorated by hand and everything. And people take a lot of pride, and they'll, there's another day in May where people wear the embroidered shirts, Vishivanka, and you do see people in the street. Everybody's got their beautiful shirts on, and they're like, we want to show off our culture, and it's our chance to just feel a more sense of pride and show it off to everybody in the world who's kind of thinking, oh, is Ukraine still united? And they're like, well, yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? As everything that they're still having to go through these many years on, really, that's not just all Ukraine and Ukrainian people are. They still have daily life and traditions, and they're still themselves, aren't they? They're not just war and affected by it.
Be defined by the worst thing that's happened to them, do they? It's
no.
like we're not some sort, I know, and nobody wants to be thought of and pitied and stuff as some kind of victim and things. And I know that it was interesting. I've had many conversations with a lady called Yulia Stefaniuk, who's the Ukraine lead for World Central Kitchen, and very effective organisation, as you might know. They do a lot in many countries, and they decentralise the way that they run things, because the charity has basically a dual purpose. So they have a sort of a rapid response side, which if there's some sort of hurricane or a sudden event somewhere, then they've got to deploy people, flooding, whatever, and they'll go and help. And then they have the long-term aid in places like Gaza, Ukraine. So where it's not just a few weeks, you're going to be there for a long time. So they then hand over the working of the charity to people in that local place, because they know best what's needed, and they, there's no layers of bureaucracy from America or something imposing a bunch of procedures which nobody needs. And Yulia said, one of their things was that they don't want to create a dependency on aid, so they don't want to just give people, hot meals. Especially somewhere like Irpin or somewhere like that, where by now people are probably living somewhere with kitchens and they can cook. So they started giving people ingredient boxes. So where living in kitchens, they were like, well, okay, you can have hot meals, but we'd like to give you potatoes and vegetables and some chicken or whatever. Then they started with people who were in the countryside in villages who'd been able to move back. They were giving them chickens, like live chickens, so they can start growing their chickens again, and they'll have eggs, and then they can
be self-sufficient again.
Which is what people want, to have their normal lives, and as I said, their dignity back. And they want to just not, it won't be normal because you're living in a war, but as much as possible you want to have your kind of identity and your if you grow up, and a lot of people who've had to leave their homes and flee from occupied areas or from areas near the front, and they've had to move to sort of some block of flats in a city, and it is really difficult to adjust because you don't have anything familiar. And
taken away.
Elderly people and so on, that's why some of them choose to stay, and you think, why on earth would anyone stay in these places which are just constantly under attack, and they're even living in basements without anything, and you think, why would anyone do that? But it is because sometimes they're just stubborn, or their husband is buried there. I don't know, there's all sorts of reasons people have. And the first people I met from Good Bread, who I was talking to about this, taking aid to people in these very dangerous places, and they said, we just knew it's not for us to judge them for being there. We can't go around saying, oh well, you should have moved. Are you waiting for Russians? I don't know. You don't know what their circumstances are. Just they deserve to have bread like anybody. So that's what we do, and we sort of don't try and apply some sort of moral judgment to them.
That's how they're coping with the circumstances they've been given. There's no guidebook, is there, or rules, or?
I mean, you'd be astonished the courage of some of these people. I met this amazing guy called Ruslan in Kharkiv, and they have a small bakery there now, which was evacuated from a city called Kupiansk, which is in Ukrainian control, but there was a huge amount of door-to-door fighting, and the Russians at one point said they controlled it, then Zelensky went there to say, oh no, you don't. But I mean, it is very contested, and it's not really habitable, very close to the border. So the bakery was destroyed anyway, and everyone evacuated about a year ago. And they created it again in Kharkiv, and they make bread. And this guy Ruslan, he has this big ambulance, and he drives to these villages near Kupiansk where there are still people living who want to evacuate. He takes bread for the people who are still there, and then he brings out people who are sick or who have mobility problems. He brings their animals with them.
Yes, yeah.
Puts videos up, and oh my gosh, your heart stops watching. You don't even know how he's managed to even. I mean, the roads are terrible. There's drones you can see, sort of, it's just horrific. And he somehow manages to get there and back. Sometimes he has to row a boat to fetch people.
Oh my gosh.
The extra mile, that man. Several times. And amazing guy.
And he was just a baker to begin with.
Yeah. And an amazing guy. And I just, I don't know how he does it. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that journey once, let alone.
No, never.
Yeah, but he brings people out. They're alive thanks to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That keeps them going.
Yeah.
So you end the book with a really lovely collection of recipes, and now please tell me if I'm saying this right. Palianizia?
Palianizia, yeah.
Which is a sourdough bread. I made one at the weekend and it
I
was
know,
phenomenal.
very sourdough baking, what I'm not very good at. But the others, I've made it with the others when I've just had to help with
Yeah.
the sourdough starter's already been there, because I kill sourdough starter instantly. It gives up when it sees me. No.
I had mine going for 8 months before I did anything with it, so it's just as bad.
Very needy.
Out of these recipes, I know you spoke about banosh and gambovtsi, is it?
Gombovtsi, yeah. So
Yeah.
Western Ukrainian dish from the Carpathian region, but I've had them in Kharkiv. So the restaurant where I've had them, one of my favourite places, they donated the recipe, so it's their secret recipe for these dumplings. A bit like, you know, maybe I've had nudi in an Italian restaurant made of ricotta, so it's like very soft but it forms a sort of little outside, keeps itself together if you steam it, or you can boil it gently. And you put a cherry in the middle, and then they roll when it comes out of you don't have to steam it for very long, because it's mainly this curd cheese, cottage cheese, not like English cottage cheese. So you have to buy the Polish twaróg, it's called in Polish, because it's much drier. I think English cottage cheese is way wetter, but yeah, this drier stuff, you sort of whiz it around a bit, or mash it with a fork to make it smooth, and then you sort of mould it with a tiny bit of flour or manko. I can't think what it is in English. Cream of wheat. Anyway, and then semolina, and then they're only about as big as a small golf ball, I suppose, and then you roll them in buttered breadcrumbs, buttered fried breadcrumbs. I mean, what's not to like? And then you serve the sour cream sweetened a bit with some caramel, and then some cherry compote. Cherries are very big in Ukraine. They grow very well there, and they have two types of cherries. So mostly vishnia, which are sour cherries, and then chereshnia, which are the sweet ones. But everyone likes the sour cherries. They're a little bit hard to find here. You can get them frozen sometimes, or in Turkish shops, but I think they're not as easy to find. But regular cherries are okay. I don't think anyone would care.
And the curd as well, you can get that from a normal supermarket, can't you? I pick some up from Waitrose.
The bigger supermarkets, if there is in an area where there is a Polish, in the sort of foreign food section, they often have a little Eastern European, and you just need to get the full fat one, because the other one is it's not quite as, I don't know what's in it to make it low fat, but it doesn't behave.
Always go full fat anyway.
Yeah.
And I'll end with, what would you like readers to, two questions actually. What would you like readers to take away from the book?
I suppose that it just shows the power of ordinary people to keep a country going, really. I mean, obviously the soldiers at the front are really important. You know, everyone respects that, and the whole of Ukraine's effort is to support those guys. But for everybody else who's not in the armed forces, life has to keep going somehow, and people need to take care of everybody in the community. And I have so much respect for the people in food that I've met, the volunteers and the small businesses who are just constantly innovating and trying to find their the best way, and then the chefs who are celebrating Ukrainian culture through food, and trying and making sure that people don't just know Ukraine through war, that they will know it through all sorts of beautiful, they're amazing artworks, and the embroidery and the food is really delicious. So the more people I think who try it, and who get to love borscht and syrniki and all these kind of dishes, I think it'll make it feel a bit closer to you what's happening there.
Yeah, which is greater in a bigger way than people think, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we'll end on, so for people that do want to support, I know there's Bake for Ukraine in terms of the hashtag and getting involved and spreading the word about these bakes. What other things could people do that want to help make a difference?
I mean, I have a Just Giving page which I've got up at the moment. I'll send you the link to it, and that's just a good way of. It's easy to donate to that, and then they don't take very much funds. When you make a donation, they don't keep a big percentage of it. So that's always a good platform, I find. And I take regularly money over, or hand it over to the girls in Odessa, and then we use that directly in Mykolaiv in the mobile bakery. And they built an indoor bakery recently. And we've had some great support. Bake for Ukraine had an amazing group of bakers in America, people who had professional bakeries, and they organised over a weekend. They all made the palyonitsa and a couple of the other bread recipes.
Okay.
And they sold those loaves and raised money directly for us. And we raised enough to buy a second mobile bakery, which was amazing. So you could always try asking your local bakery. They can get in touch with Bake for Ukraine on their website. There's some resources there with all the recipes that they can just download, and then you donate through this We Aid organisation, as long as you say it's for Bake for Ukraine. So because they collect money for lots of charities, but it will go, through all the, it's a, I don't know what you call it,
like a fast track channel, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's a way of donating through a recognised charity and stuff, because businesses can't give just to Bake for Ukraine directly, because it's not registered in the UK, because they're not from the UK. But this We Aid organisation, you can. That's why they route it through that, because then all the finances are clearly above board and audited and all of that, so people can know that it's going to the right place.
Good. What I'll do is when I post the recording of this video, I'll pop all the links to your Just Giving and those packs as well, if people want to get involved, take them to their bakeries. The post.
The other book I wanted to mention is my great friend Maria Kolenska, who's the co-founder of Bake for Ukraine. Amazing woman. Like, she is the most driven person. She just makes things happen, and she wrote this beautiful book which has just come out, called Cuisines of Odessa, published by Walden Owen. It's about everywhere, actually. You can find it in all of the bookshops. It's
got a beautiful illustration on the front, isn't it?
Irina Goncharenko, who's the artist, she's also from Odessa, a young woman who's extremely talented. She did the cover art and all the photographs inside. I was able to go to quite a few of the photo shoots while Maria was creating the book. And she had such a strong vision. She's got this incredible eye for imagery and how she wants something to look. And with food, often it's quite hard to make that happen, because you have this idea of a dish. But she really, really knew how to do it. And she wanted to show off Odessa in its most beautiful way and introduce it to people who've never heard of it, but through this incredible variety of dishes, because it's a very diverse city, loads of nationalities. And that because it's a port, and the food is just like nothing you will have tried. So I really urge people to get Maria's book. You will love cooking from it, I can promise you.
Perfect. I'll link that in the description as well.
And she'll be donating profits from that as well to Bake for Ukraine. So that's
perfect. So you can give back in additional ways as well by buying the book. I've got this post coming out later on this month with all the photos of the bakes that I've made from the book. And also we've got Cook the World as well, which is launching, or has launched this month, where I'll be investigating and discovering loads of different bakes and dishes from all around Ukraine. So if you're interested in that, then that's at the end of the month, and I'll pop Felicity's Just Giving page as well. And if you would love to donate, then we'd love you to donate as well. So,
always great. It's £1. It all goes to a good place. So thank you.
It really will be used, won't it? So
yeah.
But thank you so much for your time today, Felicity. We've kept you for an hour, so I'm super grateful.
Thank you so
much. Don't forget to buy the book. Thank you so much, Felicity, and thank you for everyone that's joined in as well. And if you've watched us back on recording, again, thank you so much for watching. Take care, have a lovely evening, and see you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, Felicity. Bye.